This is a essay read for the topic environment in the United States. All right, so the environmentalists killed the auto industry of the 50s and 60s because of a strong environmentalist movement. So that's point one. Demanding change from automobile companies would lead to new policies, okay, that regulated the auto companies' impact on the environment. So it seems like they are arguing 2 points, and one is going to be it's almost like a cause and effect, the environment, and then the environmentalists lead to government policies. Now, they haven't said anything specific about which policies, they haven't said anything specific about which environmentalists or what this environmentalist movement is. Kill the auto industry. So, this is also incorrect because the decline is going to really be in the 70s. Kill the auto industries of the 50s and 60s. Okay, so I guess they're arguing that the 50s and 60s, which is considered a golden age for the auto industry, that the environmentalists killed it. Um, I don't know. I still would like to see some sort of date to the 70s, and I don't know if that's really the intent here. In the 50s and 60s, there was a huge environmentalist movement. So, again, vague. They're not saying much. That was concerned with lessening the air pollution that was created by automobiles. This is my comment here. Add a quick explanation of the movement and because, because of what? Like, what was the motive here? So this is the actual student writing here. The popularity of the automobile, all the decades before. This is a reference to the 50s and 60s. That's just my understanding of the information. The pollution created was significant. Okay, well, why? And this is where your research comes in. One of the things is that big 8-cylinder engine that is just consisting of 8 cylinders that is really, creating a situation where there's just too much fuel being consumed by one car. But they're not mentioning that. However, I don't know if they're going that direction anyway. But that's what I'm thinking as I read this. I know that they need to mention that, and if they don't, they've missed a significant point of the content. Unlike the decade before, consumers were deeply concerned about the environment and safety. Again, there's nothing specific here. I don't know who these consumers were. Is this some sort of advocacy group? Like, what are they doing? This just seems to be general and based on an assumption. Anyway, for example, in the automobile age by the Wilson Quarterly, so we have the introduction of the source here. Notice how they used italics for the name, or question mark, or quotation marks for the name, and then italics for the name of the article. Totally appropriate. During the 60s, a time of generalized dissatisfaction, cultural upheaval, intellectuals and activists often decry the car as a curse rather than a blessing at the source of pollution. So I see where they're going. This does kind of fit that environmentalist movement that they brought up here. But the issue that I have is there doesn't seem to be any context. We want to have something about the 50s and 60s, going back to this point. What was so bad about the 50s and 60s that led to the rise of these environmentalists? That would be where I would want to go with this, or what I would expect to see. Again, that's my understanding of the material, and that's why you have to do the research. There's certain keywords that I'm looking for. Let's look at their analysis. Consumers were no longer as excited by the prospect of new vehicles. So this seems like an assumption, and focused their attention towards social issues. Okay, well, how do you know that to be factual? What are your examples? You almost need a source here. Like pollution and the environment, however, you can't really have that source because you have one here. And if you put a source explaining this next to this source, then I'm going to say you stacked your sources too close. You have source 1 and 2, and you have no analysis. So you want to go source 1, analysis sentence, analysis sentence, analysis sentence, sentence 2. So this would be better if they, gave me some sort of historic context, of the 60s. Why were these environmentalists needed? It's almost like they jumped right into the environmentalists. They're already doing something. I have no idea as the reader as to why they're doing that. The new attitude put automobile companies in a less impressive position. I don't know what impressive position means, and these companies would have to finally listen to their customers. How do you, again, know that? It's almost like they want to say the environmentalists are putting pressure on the auto industry, and the auto industry is now making new cars, which is actually the issue. Like, what happens? The problem is, like, they didn't really explain any of that. As the reader, I have to kind of fill in the gaps, and if I have to fill in the gaps as the reader, you're going to lose points on analysis. You're going to lose points on clear, concise argument. Anyway, let's keep going. This critical viewpoint was heavily influenced by the environmentalist movement. Again, stop using this environmentalist movement. Maybe you pick one group of the environmentalist movement and you focus on that particular group. It seems like they want to use this general label, this general language, and it's not specific enough. I don't necessarily know what that means. They have a significant impact. I don't think that they supported this particular point. I think the writer believes they did. Well, let's see, and let Americans know how much harm is being done to the environment. Like this right here is a good point. If you want to argue a good thesis point, what the environmentalists did to, create awareness amongst Americans. They were giving speeches, TV ads, they were running political candidates, they were lobbying the government, and now that becomes a method of what the strategy is, and I could kind of see that as the reader. For example, according to the Reform the Auto Industry by Give Earth a Chance, it states, okay, so I don't know exactly at the moment where this is, but I like this source so far. I like the title of it. It's giving me hope as the reader. On November 30th, lawyer Ralph Nader published Unsafe at Any Speed, the Design and Danger of the American Automobile, a book in which he criticized the auto industry for manufacturing unsafe vehicles that endanger the public. So we're talking about unsafe vehicles that endanger and the polluted the nation's air. The book became a bestseller. Okay, so I see where they're going. So now we have a specific environmentalist. Well, why not change your thesis to be about this guy, Ralph Nader? That would be totally appropriate. Ralph Nader, one of the environmentalists of the 1960s, writes this book with the intent of, influencing the government to change policy in the 70s. That would be totally allowed. It almost seems like you have to narrow this down. Environmentalists it's big, and you want to funnel that down. And by talking about Nader only, you have reduced this huge, information about the environmentalists, and you've just narrowed it down to Mr. Ralph Nader. The book's popularity allowed the public to become more aware. So again, this seems to be an assumption. You need some data on this. The fact that this book was a bestseller during this time shows the mindset of the American people. So this is okay. I'd like to see more evidence on that. And then I guess now they're going to transition to what the government did. So I'm going to stop here, but as I look at this, I see a lot of general language, nothing too specific. You have to start narrowing down your writing. It's in your best interest. If you're writing with general language, you've missed the point.